Hi class, this is Professor Brennan. I am here today to talk to you about policy debate. This is for my argumentation class, and I imagine that we'll probably spend 3 videos on this. We'll see how it goes. Okay, let's get right to it. All right, here we are. So policy debate. This is what we're going to be doing in this class, right? This is kind of the culmination of your experience in this class, is really learning how to put debate or argumentation into action. And one way to do that is with debate. Now we're going to focus on policy debate because that is actually what you're going to be doing in class, is focusing on debating a policy for or against. Let's take a look. Let's review a couple things. So every policy debate begins with a statement. Okay, remember this. Let's think about this. You are stating something. And when the affirmative, in this case affirmative, is going to start off the debate, because that's what the affirmative does, they're arguing against the status quo. So they're going to state something that needs to happen, or that should happen, or that should be in place. The word should, need to, must. That's the kind of language that I want to hear when you open a debate. Like, what is the problem, right? Establishing what needs to change. It's a problem, what needs to change. It's never a, do you know about climate change? It's never like that. It is not conversational. A debate is not conversational. It is arguing. You are trying to make a point. The statement, as you know, is called a proposition. We've been working on those. What is a proposition? And finally, the proposition includes what we call an agent or agency and the action that's supposed to be advanced. So who's supposed to do it? In your proposition, who's going to, let's say, I just wrote this for my public speaking class, that the state of California should mandate that all people that work or go to school within a 20-mile radius of their home must ride a bicycle to work or school. Okay, I just not said that the best way, but you get the idea. So all persons living in the state of California, and maybe I would add like an age group, right? All persons living in the state of California who live within a 20-mile radius from their employment or school must ride a bicycle to work or school. Okay, that explains who's the agent. The agent is the state of California. They're going to make that policy, right? The government of the state of California is going to institute, implement, require that policy. And then what action is to be advanced? Well, I explained it, right? Ride a bicycle. If your work or your school is within 20 miles in the radius of your home, then you need to ride a bike. In other words, you can't drive a car. If you want transportation, I guess you could walk. 20 miles is a long way to walk, but if you've ever ridden a bike, 20 miles by bike is not that far. Okay, you got me? Let's move on. Sample propositions. The United States government should ban semi-automatic rifles, right? Who's the agent? The United States government. What do you want them to do? Ban. You want them to ban. Keyword ban. What? Ban what? Semi-automatic rifles. Semi-automatic rifles. U.S. government should refuse citizenship to all persons who have entered the United States illegally. Okay, who's the agent or agency? United States government. What do you want them to do? You want them to not allow legals, people who enter the United States illegally. You want them not to give citizenship to people who have entered the United States illegally, right? By the way, any of these things that I'm giving you sample propositions do not mean this is what I think or what I believe in. I'm just giving you examples. Okay, state of California should raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour. The state of California might have already done that. So this is I have not updated these particular propositions. All right, the state of California should require all industrial-sized farms to undergo quarterly inspections by farm animal cruelty specialists. Okay, that's long, but you get it, right? The state of California is the agent, or the agency in this case. They would require any industrial-sized farms. Now, let's go back to, remember we talked about language and defining language? If this were your, in debate, if this were your proposition, one of the things that I would want to know is what defines industrial size? Like how many farm animals do you have? And if we're talking about farm animals, then we need to establish what farm animals are considered farm animals, right? I can think of a couple things, but a couple like chickens and pigs and cattle or cows. I can think of a couple, but I'm not a farmer. I bet there's more than that of what we consider farm animals. Okay, then what you're saying that particular industry should undergo quarterly, which means 4 times a year, quarterly inspections by people who specialize in animal cruelty toward farm animals. Okay, all clear, right? But if you were, let's say someone was proposing this proposition, if you were on the opposition or the negative, these are the things you would want qualifications. You want to ask questions like, how do you qualify industrial size? What's an industrial size? What's that mean? How do you decide who the specialists are? Like, this is good argumentation. Asking these questions. How do you decide farm animal cruelty specialists? Are they going to be people that are veterinarians? What do they specialize in and why? Like, how do you get that information? Okay, so I'm going over the propositions, but I'm giving you actually a little way to also analyze these propositions and think in terms of debate. The United States government should require each state to implement a 25-year plan to eliminate the use of all fossil fuels. So the state of California is already doing that. Let's say the U.S. government should require every state, all 50 states, to implement a 25-year plan. So that means starting from 25 years to now, what is their plan to get rid of all the use of all fossil fuels? Now, fossil fuels, I don't think we're not just talking about cars. Fossil fuels are used for other kinds of machinery. So those are the kinds of things you want to ask. So if you're affirmative, this is their proposition, you want to ask, okay, implement a 25-year plan. The question I would be like, is the government going to tell them? Who's going to oversee this? Then I would say, to eliminate the use of all fossil fuels, can you explain where all fossil fuels are used? I mean, that's what I'm saying. You need to think analytically about these propositions. Okay, so how are we doing with this now? So in debate, as I've already kind of given you a preview as I've talked about this, in debate we have an affirmative and negative, or you can say the affirmative and opposition, right? Although the word opposition is you're both in opposition to each other, so it's easier for me and better if you understand just affirmative and negative. Affirmative is always arguing against the status quo. Negative is arguing for the status quo. The status quo means the way things are right now. Okay? That's a colloquialism. Status quo. Let's stay with the status quo. It means let's keep things the same. Status quo equals same. Got it? All right. So when you're in the affirmative, you bear the burden of proof. Those of you that watch Law and Order in different shows that have to deal with lawyers and cops and that kind of thing, you already know this, right? You know that the prosecution bears, and that's what the affirmative is, the prosecution bears the burden of proof. They have to prove that something's wrong, right? In your case, you have to prove that something's wrong. Whatever it is, whatever policy is in effect is not working. You have to prove that it's wrong. So you bear that burden. You're arguing against the status quo. I've already said that. And when you're using stock issues, which in this policy debate that you'll be having in class, you will be using stock issues to make your debate. You need to address this in all of your stock issues. You have the burden of proof. Okay, you're arguing against the status quo. If you remember the stock issues, right, we have ill, blame, cure, and cost. So if we have ill, that's what's wrong, right? You have to state what's wrong and you have to prove it. Then we have blame, who's at fault for this? Then we have the cure, what's the solution? And the cost, what are the benefits of having this policy in place? That is the job of the affirmative. And what's the negative going to do? So the negative assumes presumption, which means they get to say, hey, nothing's wrong here. Everything's working out just fine. How we're living right now is perfect. Everything's going fine. If it's not broke, we don't need to fix it. Okay, so that's kind of like the place that they stand in. But they also have to consider what the affirmative is arguing for, right? They have to consider what their argument they'll make, right? What kind of different ways are they going to attack whatever policy that or policy topic that you all are debating about. They have to establish the status quo is sufficient, and their job is to refute all of the stock issues that are presented by the affirmative side. Okay, that's their job, is to refute all those. Now, there's different ways. We're not talking about refutation just yet. There's different ways you can do refutation, but it means you have to say, that's not true. That's not true. That's not going to work. No, that's definitely not going to work. And that's definitely not a benefit. Here are the liabilities of putting your policy in place. Okay, that's the job of the negative. Defend, defend, defend. Think of like prosecution and defense. Okay, well, I'm going to the next one. I'm going to see where we're at. So 2 types of speech and policy debate. So we're going to stop here. I'm going to pick this up in the next presentation, and I'll see you in a minute.